Well, hello everyone. It's Granny Linda again. Um, I have been working behind the scenes on the next interview that we are going to watch of Chris and Katie Proudfoot. And I got to tell you that I haven't watched this interview probably since it was aired. And I mean, I've seen excerpts here and there on different, you know, shows, but I was kind of taken aback by the demeanor of mostly Katie. Um, it's kind of a different demeanor than we've seen since this interview. And so I think it's good to take a look at it. But I also decided to do a twist with it. I thought we would look at the body language, and to give credit where credit is due, we are going to be using just kind of showing excerpts from the behavior panel. Um, and these guys are very well known. They are professional. And once again, I didn't see this coming. I saw it in the beginning, and yeah, I don't know. It's funny how you start out with something and then you end up, seeing other things and your whole perception can be changed, right? That's what happened, at least in my opinion. You know, everything that is said on this channel is all alleged. Um, Nothing, is regarded as facts. I'm just trying to figure out where Sebastian is, right? We want to find out, we want to take a look at these interviews and we want to find out anything that we may have missed. But I got to tell you, this one was a big eye opener for me. So we are going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. Come on in at my table, sit down, grab your beverage, popcorn if you want. We are going to split this up into 4 separate sessions because what they have to say is a lot. And I think you're going to be shocked. Many of you may not agree, and that's okay. I'm not totally sure I agree with everything that they say, but that's all right because we have that right. We have the right to our own opinion. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to go ahead and get started.
So first, just express, I can't even imagine as a parent what you two are going through. How would you describe the situation right now? How are you coping?
Um,
Did that surprise you guys? She looked like she just couldn't talk, right? I don't know, she just looked shaken up, right?
We're on a constant roller coaster ride of helpless and hopeless and many other emotions all in one, and it's a never ending roller coaster. It doesn't stop. It won't stop until he walks through the door.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone. not any.
I know we're about keeping hope alive. I'm sure that's in there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
He's gonna
Always.
come home.
He's going to walk through that door. And the street will be flooded again with family and relatives all waiting to hug and love him. And
That boy's gonna have more friends than he knows what to do with when he comes home.
so,
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so let's first off start by talking about there's so much information, disinformation, misinformation out there about this case that what we're going to have to do is rely on what we can see. So what we're not doing is telling you what the facts are any more than we have learned from this channel or that channel. In the beginning, there were people saying that the father was left the night before. And then there are people who say had been in Memphis for 2 weeks, the stepfather. So there's a ton of stuff here. And what we're going to do is tell you what we see. Some of you are going to be irritated by it. That's okay. That's part of it.
Okay, and so remember that we have more information now about Chris leaving at 11 o'clock in the morning, but keep in mind they aired this on March 14th, which wasn't even a month since Sebastian was missing. Not a whole lot of information had been given out at that point, remember? So let's go with what they know.
But what I want to start with is saying this guy's a tower crane operator. You know what a tower crane is? It's you climb up a really big ladder and operate a crane. You're moving stuff around over people's heads all the time. So if he's not as flappable, not as shaky, doesn't bother me because I think, okay, here's a guy who does something that's kind of high stress for a living. That part's one thing. But what I am going to do is compare him to him, not him to me or him to Mark or him to Scott or him to Chase. We're going to look at what we see in him and look for deviations. In the beginning, she's doing an adapter that is awfully close to what I usually refer to as transfer from a True Crime Workshop, where a person makes themselves emotionally unavailable to you by some kind of movement, by too much overwhelming emotion, but she isn't unaffected. She's available. So don't take that out of your mind that just because she's swaying means she's doing something. It means she's comforting self because that release of nervous energy is comforting. There's a clear handoff from her to him. And if you don't think that's a handoff, you're not paying attention to what they're doing. That doesn't mean that she said, if I cry, if I laugh, if I do, you need to do this. It means that he sees that she needs that relief. Could be scripted. Don't know.
I find that interesting. A handoff. Could be scripted. They don't know. In my opinion, and I know a lot of other people's opinions, they do feel that some of the interviews that Chris and Katie have done have been scripted. Coughs in selective places and things like that. So I find it interesting that they say that, but they're being fair. They're saying, we don't know. This is early on. We don't know.
But his language in there is awfully wooden and awkward, which tells me that this is probably when they were thinking about what are we going to say. He's going to say it's been an emotional roller coaster because the language seems awkward. It doesn't seem accurate or upfront. It's okay because that's what people do. There's also a couple of other little bitty pieces of body language, and then I'll go to something else, let you guys cover the rest. But he does that's fair, body language when he's asked the question that he should have considered about, I forget exactly what it is. Oh, yeah. When she says, there's still hope, right? And he's like, well, oh, yeah, there's hope. I should have said that, should have thought of that's what I see in that body language. There is, however, some really interesting body language when they talk about friends and when they talk about a lot of people coming back. He's going to have more friends than he's had in the past. And her lead into that, the stress on that word friends makes me wonder, was there some kind of an altercation about his access to people that she feels guilty for? She feels something about, because that comes up pretty strong in both their body language and in her stressing of the body language or of the word. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, and to mirror Greg, we're here to analyze the behavior only of Sebastian's parents. And first and foremost, I want to emphasize that there's an outpouring of community support for Sebastian, and our focus is solely on understanding the behavioral dynamics of what's going on and how it might contribute to Sebastian's getting back home. So this is not about assigning blame or guilt. So we're just doing an opinion here to help in any way that we can. So with this rocking back.
Okay. So he made a clarification there stating that what they're doing is just to analyze behaviors in order to figure out any way that they can help with Sebastian getting home. Now, obviously, we're 7 months later, right? And we, some of us think we know what happened, some of us don't. But he makes a clarification that they're just there to try and help. They're not trying to place blame, anything like that, because the real focus, the goal should always be Sebastian, no matter what we think.
And forth, I think it's a self-soothing behavior that people very often exhibit when they're under a lot of stress or they're going through some high level of anxiety. It's a way for our body to comfort itself in the absence of external comfort. And then there's a smile when she turns to her husband here. And this is likely disbelief, not some kind of joy or happiness about the moment. This is why we talk about context and when those behaviors occur. It's so important. And for now, I'm just going to assume it's baseline until I see more with this rocking and stuff. And when she says he's going to walk through that door, or no, he says this, when he's going to walk through that door, there's a lip pursing behavior right there, which is a little unusual. We see this kind of lip pursing. And this is most often a nonverbal sign of disagreement.
Okay. Lip pursing on behalf of Chris, right? And he said that's a little unusual. It can be a nonverbal sign of disagreement. So Katie said he's going to have so many friends when he walks back through that door. And we know at a later time, Chris actually said, well, we won't go there. Most of you know what I'm thinking. We're just not going to go there. But he's pursing his lips kind of as a sign of disagreement, which means he may not agree that Sebastian was coming home. Well, what else can we assume? May not agree, and maybe he's lost hope at this point. If he's innocent, maybe he's lost hope. It's there. They were 8 days in, I think, at the time of this interview. So, it's very possible the first few hours, the first couple days are critical. And now we're just a little past a week and things look kind of rough. No more, not to mention that now we're actually 7.5 months into this and things don't look good at all,
Agreement or disapproval. And sometimes it's like a person's holding back something they don't want to say, or they're expressing doubt about what they just said. And they're not looking at each other and they're not responding to each other's statements. And I think this could be a sign that there's no rehearsal, but it could also indicate there's something going on between them, like some emotional drama, which I'm sure there is, especially if Sebastian's missing and they're both innocent. And in the videos we've seen like this one, where we do know the outcome, this behavior is more common in people who are innocent, but there could be more to see here. And I think this single behavior doesn't spell anything definitive. I'm not hearing his name mentioned yet, but if I hear minimal mention of a missing person's name, which you've heard us talk about before.
And 7.5 months in, we know that Sebastian's name, at least by Chris and Katie, is rarely used. So, they've noticed it right from the beginning. It's kind of interesting.
And there's no other indicators, like big piles of indicators that indicate deception. It's just a data point. So I keep that in my back pocket until I see a cluster of behavior. Scott, what do you got?
All right. Thanks, man. I agree with you. I'm seeing a lot of the same things you guys have seen so far. But right out of the gate, there's a little something with each of them that bothered me a little bit. Like we were talking about before, doesn't mean they're innocent, doesn't mean they're guilty. Nothing. I'm just telling you what I see. We're just telling you what we see. He shows no emotion toward her whatsoever. It's a flat effect and no grief, no concern. And he looks really rested. And so that rocking she's doing back and forth. We see this throughout all the videos we're going to see today. What we'll look for during this, pay attention to this, is fascinating the way this works. You'll see them rock in tandem a few times, especially at the beginning of the first one to answer. As she's rocking, he'll start rocking with her. So he's matching her rocking. And I'm sure, like what you were talking about, Chase, the emotional thing between them is she may have just.
I'm going to stop that right there. A lot of us have said this, have we not? Where Chris, the only emotion I've ever seen out of him has been his anger, which is not a good thing if you think about it. But I agree with them. He's not, her son is missing. She seems distraught. I'm going to say that. She seems distraught in this video. And he's not doing anything to make her feel better. He's not grabbing her hand and holding it. He's not rubbing her arm. He's not putting his arm around her to hug her. Even when she looked at him, in that moment where she just didn't know what to say, it took him a minute. He was like, yeah, whatever. I mean, he didn't show this is his wife. And whether he liked Sebastian or not, whether he cared for Sebastian or not, her son is missing. So if he loves his wife, wouldn't he show her some kind of caring attitude, gesture, something?
Sealed herself off. She's probably in such a big upheaval of emotion. She's short with him. He's trying to be cool because she's worried about a kid. Is what I would think. That's what I took out of that. Her eyes are red. She's not rested. She looks like she should look, and that upheaval emotion that we see, she's suddenly reliving that horror. I always talk about that on here. How we're not seeing that. So that's one of the things we're seeing with someone who we haven't seen with people who aren't innocent. She's got a new Kleenex. Now, if you remember, the last person we looked at that had that was crying and all that stuff, constantly wiping their eyes and doing their nose with the same Kleenex. And it's just this balled up little ball. Hers isn't, it's new. And notice how many times during these videos, she doesn't wipe tears and she doesn't wipe her nose. She does it a couple of times because those are the times that she needs it. People who are faking this usually are under the impression, I should have tears coming out, so I'll keep doing this. And notice when she uses that Kleenex here at the first, where she just does it on the top of her nose. So I thought that was interesting as well. Not saying she's innocent, not saying she's guilty, but these are just things that I'm noticing anyway. And then she's not looking at him at all. Doesn't look at him at all, but he does look at her as they go through. So, all right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, very much the same. Look, time has passed since they had, notified the police.
I'm going to stop that there just a moment. What Scott said was really interesting, how she wasn't looking at him. Well, she did look at him in the beginning, and he didn't give her any kind of satisfaction. So, why would she look at him now? She knows she's not going to get anything from him, right? I just wanted to point that out.
Police, and this interview is happening. Maybe as much as, what do you think, Greg? like 8 days or something like that.
Yeah, 8 days, 8, 9
yeah,
days.
around about
like
that.
Yeah.
Around about that. Okay, so look, it's time for them to organize a story together if they wanted to. So look, they could organize a story together. What they can't organize is the synchronicity of their movement. That choreography would take a lot of rehearsal, and it's consistent. She rocks back and forth 3 times. He breathes in and out. There's this waltz timing going on throughout. You can't rehearse that stuff. They're absolutely in synchronous movement. That would suggest, just as you're saying, Scott, that there is a shared experience, a shared emotion. If there wasn't anything shared, it would be very hard to organize that subtle synchronous level of
one thing I did miss though was that they do look at each other in that one. I for a second I thought we're looking at number 2. They look at each other for about 2.5 seconds on this one. So sorry about that. Sorry to jump in, but I had to make sure I said that.
Sure. They also talk.
So I find that interesting how they're saying that they really are synchronous together. They have that synchronicity. I find that really interesting. However, okay, so they have this shared experience. It could be one of 2 things in my opinion. My opinion only, guys. So they have this shared experience of Sebastian being gone, being missing, right? Okay. So if they're innocent, they're sharing that. And then that shared experience shows their synchronicity. Or they are sharing on the other level. I'm being the devil's advocate here, my opinion only. If they were instrumental in putting Sebastian somewhere, whatever that may be, they're sharing that experience as well, right? So it could be either one of 2 scenarios for their synchronicity to be explained.
Talk about hope. Chase, to your point of there is something unsaid. There's a possibility here of a loss of hope and a sense of hope at the same time, having to balance the 2 things together, hold those 2 ideas. You've got to remain hopeful at the same time. You may be losing hope. So I think they talk about hope, though. There's some closed lips there from the male, from the father. He uses the idea of that boy rather than maybe she does as well. We're not often throughout this going to hear Sebastian named, often called that boy. I would suggest that's more likely cultural than them trying to distance themselves.
I find that interesting that he feels that Chris calling Sebastian that boy being cultural, because in other videos he also calls Katie the mom and I, not Katie, my wife. It almost seems detached, doesn't it? It almost seems detached, as though there's no thought, there's no feeling, there's no caring there about either one of them. That boy, the mom. That boy, the mom. Tell me what you think, guys. I'm really curious.
It's more likely a term of endearment. That's all I got on that one. Early days, but looks to me pretty good from moment one, just on the synchronicity that they have together, which is tough to organize. That they could have organized a story. That's all I got on that one.
Yeah, one thing to add while we're all talking about this and synchronicity and all that is couples get to a certain behavior mark. To your point, he knows what to expect. He knows that how many times she's going to sniffle, how many times she's going to cry, what she's going to. He probably has some of that already in his head from the amount of time they're together. And we do it on a subconscious level, even at some point.
And couples are in sync when they're being honest. They fall out of sync during those times when we're pretending.
That's one of the things that bothered me doing this. As when we first started this, I'd made up my mind. I knew I had made up my mind about something in this, and I'm just not sure about it at this point. But that's one of the things that swayed me on it.
One of those tape replays.
So,
Okay. So, what do you guys think? That's all we're going to watch for today, but we will be back again to watch more and break it down for you. I want to just do little bits at a time because I think it gets, I don't know, it gets difficult, to look at it all in one shot. And I've spent a couple of days looking at these videos and thinking, how do I want to present this? And I thought, it's okay. If this takes us a while to get through the list of interviews, there's nothing wrong with that. Hopefully, during that time, Sebastian will be found. Hopefully, we can get some answers. Maybe we can pick up some more tips. Maybe we can see something that we missed before. Again, I'm just going to say right out loud, I do not necessarily agree with the behavior panel. But I think some of their points are valuable. I completely agree that Katie and Chris are synchronized, and it's a natural synchronicity. I really do believe that. However, I do feel there's an detachment from Chris. It's just my opinion, just what I'm seeing. I am actually very, very surprised at Katie's demeanor during this interview. We have said for a long time that we don't see a despondent mom. And there are points during this interview that I think we do see that. And I think that it's real. That's my opinion. Someone else, maybe she's a good actress. I don't know. But that's what I see. I will say that, further interviews, which aren't many that she didn't reveal that. So, I do find the laughing in poor taste, but some people laugh. I've seen this in chats, and it is very, very true. I know people in my life who do this, that they laugh, make jokes when they're upset. And I have done it myself. I will tell you a little joke, a little story. Just a couple years ago, my dad died, and he had wanted to be cremated, which in our family is kind of unheard of. So the whole family was kind of shocked that he had to be cremated, right? And so the funeral director said that they have this thing where they'll carry the ashes into the church. It's kind of like I don't know what they call it, some kind of carriage or something, and it's wire. It's I don't know. Anyway, and she said, so you'll need pallbearers. And my sister and I were like, okay, how many do we need? Right? And, they said 4. And so we picked the 4, and one of them was my son-in-law. And, after the funeral was all over and we'd gone to the cemetery and we came back to the church to have the dinner, I was sitting there with my daughter and son-in-law, and I said to my son-in-law, I said, "Hey, was Dad heavy?" And then I just started laughing, and because it was such a heavy, we were all sitting there, and my dad was really well loved. My dad was my hero, and I never knew anyone that didn't love my dad, not one person. So it was kind of heavy, and yeah, I said, "Hey, was he heavy?" Well, it got everybody laughing. Was it a sad time? Yes, it was, but looking back on it, it was kind of funny because what are the odds that they'd be asked for pallbearers to carry an urn on some kind of like carriage thing? I don't know. It was weird. But anyway, I said all that to say that sometimes people can say things that and joke and laugh in situations where they are, I don't know what I want to say, in situations that maybe it's not kosher to laugh, not supposed to laugh, or maybe they should be sad. uh, I don't know. I was honestly distraught over my father dying, you know but at that moment I felt like I had to make some kind of a joke, because if I didn't, I would start crying because it was so heavy. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense, guys? I hope it does. But anyway, we will continue on with this interview with the behavior panel on the next video, and I hope you guys will tune in for that. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for watching another episode of Granny's Crime Busters. We really appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to subscribe and like and even share the content. You can follow us on any of our other social media platforms at YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We really appreciate you guys, and you can also email us at granniescrimebusters@gmail.com. Thank you so much, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.